Dark Phoenix was directed by Simon Kinberg, longtime writer-producer of many X-Men films, first-time director, and this film is about Jean Grey, and it explores the devastating power within her and her difficulties in harnessing it. All of the people in her life, like her parents, Charles Xavier, and her friends in the X-Men who are trying to save her from that power, as well as some dangerous new people who would like to harness that power for themselves. This is not the first time we've explored this aspect of Jean Grey in a movie. X-Men The Last Stand did as well, and it was definitely one of the lesser X-Men films, while not quite as terrible as some people say. I mean, I much prefer X-Men 3 over something like Origins. But in the case of Dark Phoenix, I was really looking forward to seeing these characters with these actors get involved with this storyline, and I really wanted to see what Sophie Turner was going to do with it. And a major plus of the movie is Sophie Turner as this character. She's great. She goes through a lot of changing emotions very quickly, and it never seems messy because of her delivery. She's able to ride the wave that is this character. It's also kind of impossible for James McAvoy to be bad in a movie. He's just amazing in everything, and once again, he's terrific as Charles Xavier. So is Michael Fassbender as Magneto. There's a lot of great talent in this movie, and it's rarely wasted. Unfortunately, I would say the acting is my favorite aspect of this movie. Beyond that, this was a messy and dull film that didn't really do much for me. And this is coming from someone who has heavily defended Fox's X-Men films. I really love this franchise, and I have for nearly 20 years. I like almost all of them, but in the case of Dark Phoenix, I wouldn't say the film made me angry or anything. I didn't leave the theater upset. It was just very bland. And it feels like we built to this and nothing really happens of interest, because they approach this character as this new threat that could completely dismantle the world that Charles Xavier has tried to build. And it's this major threat that Jean Grey has these abilities, that she could destroy all of that. And yes, she does do some bad things. And yes, she does anger some characters because of choices that she makes. But it's never like the kind of thing you would expect to completely dismantle the government's view of mutants. But with previous X-Men movies, even the ones that are still within the timeline that hasn't been erased, which we'll talk about in a second, those films featured mutants doing things that were far worse than anything Jean Grey does in this movie that apparently threatens to dismantle everything Xavier has built. I was expecting it to be a lot darker, especially for the title. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I wish this movie was rated R. I think it really could have benefited from that, and I don't think it would have lost an audience at all after films like Logan and Deadpool 1 and 2 within this franchise were so successful. I think this movie really could have benefited from some more intensity. But let's talk about that timeline for a second, because it is actually really confusing now. And it's starting to bother me. I've begun to pay attention to it a lot more. In the past with the X-Men movies, I just tried to watch each one and see like what that film did for me in its contained story. But when Days of Future Past came out, it was a great movie, but it kind of screwed things up. Now the universe is all over the place. Things that maybe happened or that we thought happened haven't happened quite in that way. Entire films have been erased, and we're not supposed to take the events of those films seriously anymore, because in Dark Phoenix, things happen that just don't relate to the pre-existing films we've seen, X-Men 1 and 2. And so obviously things have now been scattered. Something alternate is happening. Something has been changed by whatever Logan did in Days of Future Past. Because if you go into this film expecting some sort of connective tissue from 1992, when this film takes place, to the year 2000, when X-Men happened, you're not going to get that. For one, apparently in 8 years, James McAvoy goes from looking like James McAvoy to looking like Patrick Stewart. And if you really want to examine the narrative of the X-Men franchise, especially with Dark Phoenix, it starts to get really annoying, and it threatens to ruin the entire film. And so I tried not to think about it while I was watching the movie and just roll with the punches. But if you care, that's really going to bother you, I think. You can tell there was an effort to back off from the more stylized approach of previous X-Men films, because the Way Kinberg Directs, which by the way, this is his feature directorial debut, his only other credit was the most recent season finale of The Twilight Zone, Jordan Peele's reboot. So this is a huge thing to just suddenly direct. And you can tell that he has not handled action set pieces. You can tell that he doesn't always know how to make a conversation feel like something other than shot, reverse shot over and over again, because sometimes the scenes in which characters are just sitting down talking can be kind of boring. And since this is written and directed by Kinberg, this is absolutely his vision on screen. That being said, the film underwent extreme reshoots, from what I understand, to add a third act sequence involving a train. Now, I didn't actually know that until after the movie. I did some research about it. And so watching the movie, I was just like, okay, this must be what he wants to do. And I remember when it got to that train sequence, I was like, wow, this is like way more exciting than the rest of the movie. Why is this like suddenly a different movie? I even said in my head while watching it, this seems like a different movie. And then I went home and found out it was a reshoot. And this is disappointing for a lot of reasons. People love the Jean Grey Phoenix stuff. I do. And this is the second time where they've tried to do it in a film, and it just didn't really work. And it has very little to do with the themes of that story. The idea of Jean Grey struggling with this power within her, whether or not she can embrace it. Can she still keep her friends if she embraces this power? Or if she does, is she just going to go full-blown evil and murder the entire universe? I love the idea of exploring that, but both of these films have done the exact same thing with this character when she is in that state. They just make her like a ticking time bomb, which is boring. That works in a few scenes, but then after that, you have to explore the complexities of this a little more. And just having her be a ticking time bomb, it just reduces it. It makes it less than what it could be. Jessica Chastain has a major contribution to this film that I did not know about, and I don't know if other people know about it, so I'm not going to get into it, because I didn't watch too many of the trailers. I saw like one, and I didn't read any of the articles or interviews that always come out about these characters and what they're doing. But her character has a lot of screen time, and her goals are a major part of this story. And you can tell it's trying to be something that is like an influence on Jean. But nothing is really coming of it. It was horribly handled and really throwaway, almost disposable, and yet it's so important to the narrative, but it doesn't feel like it is. You can just tell that the writing really needs it to be important, but you just don't care about her entire story and how she relates to Jean Grey. Also, side point, Cyclops has a line in this movie that I will never forget, because my friend and I laughed about it on the way home for probably 5 straight minutes. It's him trying to be super hard, and it just didn't work. So in the end, the best parts of Dark Phoenix for me were the actors. Everyone's great in the movie, but it just didn't feel like it had the intensity this story needed. And its messages, while very important, felt forced and not earned. Character actions are very important, but instead they just sort of speak what the writer is hoping the themes are, instead of actually doing and showing these things. And while that train sequence added a lot of action to the film and made the finale more exciting than it had been, it was unfortunately a case of too little, too late. The rest of the movie before that wasn't remotely as entertaining, and the characters say and do things that just don't lead to anything. This should have been so much better than it was, and it could have been if they just went for that R and really let Jean Grey loose. But they don't. It's almost like they played it safe with her. I'm going to give Dark Phoenix a C. So guys, if you do see Dark Phoenix, I'd like to know what you think, because this is sort of an end of an era. Now that Marvel has Fox, 19 years. And I mean, the New Mutants is still coming out, apparently, even though it's been like in post forever and changes and another X-Men movie with reshoots. I am excited to see that, though. I want to see what they do with that film. But nevertheless, if you guys do see Dark Phoenix, let me know what you think. I also want to give a big thank you to the sponsor for this video, and that is Honey. If you've ever bought something online but then discovered you could have gotten it for cheaper, that's a very frustrating experience. But with Honey, a free browser extension, it scans the internet for coupon codes and other discounts, and then like magic, it automatically applies them to your cart at checkout. It knows about every coupon code, sale, or discount at over 37,000 sites like Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy, Nordstrom, and more. I buy a lot of stuff from Best Buy and GameStop. I was literally just at Best Buy today. Blu-rays, video games, all kinds of stuff. Honey is an easy and free way to save money at those stores online. It's also incredibly easy to install. It took me 2 clicks. Over 10 million people are already saving with Honey. They have over 100,000 5-star reviews on the Google Chrome store, and Time Magazine called them basically free money. Look, there really is no reason not to try out this service. If you shop online as often as I do, it can save you a lot of money. So please do check out joinhoney.com/Stuckmann in the description below. That's joinhoney.com/Stuckmann. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring this video, and thank you guys for watching. As always, if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmannized.